Okay, so I think we can make a start. There are still people joining. As I was saying, we saw that just over 450 people registered today for this event. So welcome everyone, wherever you are. My last count, hi Hasman, my last count was people from over 40 countries and location. So that's great. That's great to see. And welcome to this first INQAAHE Talks. This is a new series of webinar, where we will aim to connect INQAAHE membership with a broader international higher education and quality assurance community to discuss today's pressing issues. So we will intend to bring together international experts and practitioners to share insights, experiences, challenges, solutions, so as to ensure that higher education quality assurance will continue to serve our increasingly interconnected communities in the best way. So, my name is Fabrizio Trifiro. I'm Head of Quality Benchmark Services at ACTIS UK ENIC, and I sit in the Board of Directors of INQAAHE. I will chair this webinar together with my colleague Nadia Badrawi, who is President of the Arab Network for Quality Assurance in Higher Education. Indeed, in bringing these INQAAHE talks to you, we will sometimes cooperate with partner agencies, such as regional networks of quality assurance bodies. And this webinar has been co-organized with INQAAHE, which we thank for their support. Now, the webinar will look at the impact of the global pandemic on teaching and learning, and specifically the challenges and opportunities associated with online learning. We'll be listening to the perspective of students, the perspectives of higher education providers and quality assurance bodies, and we are very much looking forward to engaging with all participants. To help us informing our discussion, I'm really pleased to welcome our 4 excellent panelists who will be able to share their different perspectives on the topic. Dr. Wafa Al-Mansouri, Director of Institutional Research and Assessment at the American University of Bahrain. Hamed Ali, Director of International Digital Enrollment at EdPlus, Arizona State University. Dr. Bethany Simonich, Director of Research and Innovation at Quality Matters. And Dr. Jenny Walker, Deputy CEO at the Oman Academic Accreditation Authority. We have also collected the views of a range of students from different regions of the world about their experience during the pandemic, which we will play in a short video shortly. But before that, and before hearing from our speakers, before hearing from Nadia, who will share some introductory words on behalf of INQAAHE, I would like to express on behalf of INQAAHE and the INQAAHE board our serious concern about the current events and the current war in Ukraine, our concerns about our colleagues at NACA, the Ukrainian quality assurance body, and we sincerely hope that the hostility will come to an end and that dialogue and cooperation, which are the values underpinning the work of INQAAHE and the international higher education community, will resume soon. Now, before handing over to Nadia, a few words about housekeeping. We have muted all your microphones to help with the smooth running of the event, and your cameras have also been disabled. But we are very keen to hear from you. In fact, we intend these webinars to be as interactive as possible. So you will be able to use the Q&A function, the chat function to ask your questions, to make your comments. We will aim to answer as many questions as possible, either as we go along or in the dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Also, I should say that the webinar will be recorded and it will be made available for free access after the event. Last but not least, I would also like to thank Beatrice, who is at the INQAAHE Secretariat, who in the background is making sure that everything runs smoothly, and shortly we'll play the students' video clip. Now I'd like to pass the word to Nadia for some introductory words on behalf of INQAAHE. Nadia.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that the Arab Network of Quality Assurance is in association and collaboration with the International Network for Quality Assurance are organizing this very interesting webinar I know that we have until now more than 180 participants from 40 countries, and that's it's really reflect the feeling that this is an important webinar for everyone. To start with, I want to say the Arab Network of Quality Assurance is a network established in 2007, and most of the Arab quality assurance agency are member of this network. And as I see, many of the Arab region are participating in this network. And the second thing is the collaboration between the International Network for Quality Assurance, INQAAHE, and INQAAHE. And you see the names are very similar between INQAAHE and INQAAHE. But because we worked together a long time, even in the establishment of the Arab network, INQAAHE was part of this establishment of the Arab network. The collaboration is going on very well, and we hope that we continue this collaboration. And I'm happy that the first regional webinar, it is done with the Arab network, and it will follow with other webinars. So I don't want to be more longer than this, and I'm asking Beatrice to start to play the video for everyone to watch it. Beatrice?
The best part about online learning is it is really flexible. You can access it anywhere and anytime. And if you can't attend a class on its schedule, you can just watch its recording later when you have time. And it is also really convenient because you don't really have to
travel every day to the university. Here in Colombia, traveling to the university for me takes about 2 to 3 hours every day. So having that time to do everything I wanted in my house, I really enjoyed that.
Online learning showed all of us, students, teaching staff, quality assurance experts, that we can use the online tools for quality assurance processes, especially for external quality assurance activities.
The best thing about online learning is that we can see related videos, visual, and to get many more important websites. Now we have access to National Digital Library, which makes access of books so much easier.
Although it has many advantages, for example, using developed softwares and technology, and being able to receive our education during such times, but it continues to be less effective than being in a physical classroom. I am really looking forward to going back to in-class learning, to get the most out of the lectures, to meet my professors face to face, spend time with friends, and enjoy the campus.
The hardest part about online learning is it really lacks of social interaction. Therefore, it makes online learning feels more dull and boring personally. And aside from that,
is finance that we require for purchase of smartphones and internet connectivity. Many students struggle to access in a virtual classroom that is better suited to face-to-face format, such as those with the science lab components. Students also face internet connectivity issues.
The most challenging thing was transfer from offline learning to online one without damaging the quality of education, especially for the most practical professions as medicine and so on.
The most challenging thing was the lack of genuine experience, especially when it comes to external quality assurance processes. They have the aim to collect good practices and gain face-to-face experiences, which have been reduced considerably due to the transition to the online environment.
I think I will keep on offline learning even if after the pandemic is over, because offline learning feels more vivid to me. You have the social interaction and you have the atmosphere.
After pandemic, education should happen in both modes, online as well as offline. We feel the need to interact with our teacher face to face sometimes, as they are not just our teacher but also our mentor. But in online learning, teachers are available for us on calls and WhatsApp. There are benefits of listening to the lectures online because there are many a times use interactive teaching methods.
Personally, I think universities should give students the opportunity to decide if they want to study virtually or go and study face-to-face?
If we are talking how we would like to proceed, I can say that we have to choose some kind of hybrid model, offline learning with a lot of online tools, new technologies, virtual labs, and so on. And we have to give the choice to students.
Okay, this is really a nice video explaining how the student feels about the online learning and the COVID and everything. So I would like actually to ask Dr. Wafa Al-Mansouri to respond very shortly on this video. Dr. Wafa?
If I respond very shortly, I will start with where the last word ended, choice. Students have tasted that they have had a taste of their choice of coming online or offline, and they love it. And this is a generation that knows how to be in and out, let's say, remote communication. And that for them is a choice. It's nice to see them being able to see the benefit of each side and be mature enough to recognize that every way has its advantage and disadvantage, and they don't want to give up the choice that they had.
Thank you, Wafa. And I also picked up in particular the last word, choice, and I think that will be a theme that will accompany us today. Hamid, over to you. Could you share some first reflections from you?
No, absolutely. It's a very interesting video, and again, choice. I just wanted to highlight that at ASU, online is a modality choice, and it's not a sentence to a less quality education of that sense. And that's so definitely having a choice, and we do understand and appreciate that online, the online modality might not suit everyone. It really depends on the goals of the learner and the situation that they're in, work-wise, family, etc.
And Bithai, what do you think about what's your response about this?
That was a great video from our students, and I think a couple of key themes came through as we've already heard, one of those being flexibility. So along with that idea of choice, students want flexibility in their learning. We also heard about accessing course materials, things from the library. And I think another clear theme that came through was the quality of learning that students had experienced, during the emergency remote pivot, the remote learning, and what they really want moving forward. So, I know this is going to be a topic of our discussion too, but really looking at the contrast between those hastily prepared remote courses where everybody was doing the best they could to keep learning on, online, and then something that's purposefully designed for online delivery. So when I heard students talking about social interaction and interacting with their fellow students and their professor, that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about quality online learning, that good engagement that students have come to expect.
Thanks, Bethany. And I'm very much looking forward to hear your presentations. But first of all, Jenny, what do you make of the video? What is your initial response?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to respond. And may I too congratulate the students on stating the challenges and expectations regarding online learning so articulately. And they certainly leave us in no doubt that opinions running in favor of embracing flexibility and choice in the methods of learning, as the previous speakers have mentioned. I think from a quality assurance perspective, this means that we need to balance priorities to ensure that neither the student nor the HEIs are left shortchanged by an online experience. The campus clearly needs to remain a place that's more than just the sum of its parts. It needs to cater to the social, practical, and interactive learning needs, but we also need to be mindful, perhaps, that not everyone has equal access to technology. At the same time, I think HEIs need to be supported with realistic expectations and timeframes. If we're experiencing an educational revolution at the moment, accelerated by COVID, we need to allow time for HEIs to reframe the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe I would like to invite Dr. Wafa Al-Mansouri to give her presentation. But before you start, Dr. Wafa, I would like to notice for the attendees that they can do question and answer whenever they feel they want to ask any question, and then Dr. Fabrizio and myself will collect this and ask for the presenter at the end of the session. Dr. Wafa, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me share my screen and we start with the presentation. To give you context before I start with what we did in relation to COVID, let me give you a little bit of background about the American University of Bahrain, because the American University of Bahrain actually was licensed to operate only in February 2019. It started its operation, of course, before in order to establish the university, but that's when we formally received the license, and we accepted our first cohort of 73 students in 2019, September 2019. At the time, we had 73 students enrolled in 6 different programs in engineering, business, and multimedia design. Currently, we have 281 students enrolled in 10 undergraduate programs in the same 3 fields, and we are licensed to enroll a student in 3 master programs that we hope to start sometime next academic year. When we first established the university, one of the most important thing was the campus. AUBH has a state-of-art campus that was really developed and built to ensure that from day one, the student will have a holistic learning experience. Social spaces, classes that are designed in order to interact in different ways, gym, we had outdoor sport resources. We have also the library that has lots of rooms that a student can book in order to have their discussion and debates, and we have open rooms. So it was built in a way that this is the place where you want to come, you want to jam, and you want to meet your colleagues together. A student came into classes, as I said, in September 2019. Then all of a sudden, boom, we had COVID. And COVID did not just change our life, it kind of messed up the whole world all at once with just a virus that changed everything. In February 2020, 1 week into our 2nd semester of operation, Bahrain stopped all online, all face-to-face learning, and everything had to move into remote learning. So for us, there is no norm that we are used to. If you think of a first semester in a university as a norm, it is not a norm. That's where you start to establish. So for us, we went into full gear from the first time into let's say, informal territory that we did not know, and nobody know in the world how it will start and how it will end. But what worked for us is we did invest a lot in the learning management system from day one. And we had all our learning resources on learning management system. So it was, let's say, not easy, but we could manage fast to move into remote learning and move everything and move the class into MS Teams online. And we used to use Moodle at that time. And then we moved into Canvas in September 2020. So we did not lose much time when it came to moving from, let's say, traditional face-to-face into remote learning. But we quickly knew that this is not an episode that will stay for a few months and it will go. This is something that will stay at least for the coming couple of years. So we better invest in infrastructure. And that's how we decided to change even our learning management system throughout the crisis. We refurbished our classrooms. We invested in proctoring system, and we invested in a training the faculty and the student. Training was the main concept that we had to work with. One of the things that were very important is we always have, although we are young, we have a long-term plan, and we do lots of risk analysis all the time to make sure that we operate properly. So what we did is, from the first semester, we worked almost all the time remotely, and we managed all our sessions remotely. But we wanted, coming fall 2020, that our students have a choice. If they choose to come in, then that's okay. So we made sure that all the classrooms are fabricated with dual cameras, smart cameras. A student in the class can see the student remotely, and student remotely can see the student in class and interact with them so that they feel that they are engaged together. Faculty were provided with the state-of-the-art equipment wherever they needed. And at the same time, we ensured that the classrooms are designed in a way that we can maintain social distancing. Even for bigger classes, we connected two classes together adjacent with Wi-Fi, so that if large number of students show up, then they can be divided within these two classes. We also knew that our own policies and procedures need to be, although they are new and we just have started using them, we had to revise them and we had to adjust them. End of semester surveys had to be revised also in order to capture the student feedback with their experience so that we can improve it further. Assessment was a big issue. It's moving basically into remote in modules that were not designed for online learning. They were not, the faculty are not online expert faculty. So all this basically is not an easy thing to do. So we thought, okay, we have to invest in proctoring, in automated proctoring or let's say proctoring, online proctoring system. And in April 2020, that is within the first semester that we had COVID, we had already chosen a proctoring system. We kept evaluating them and moved from one proctoring system to another, but it did give us a little bit of assurance that at least the assessment is done properly, because we didn't want to go into pass-fail mode where the student will not get a GPA but will get a pass or a fail, which is not fair for their work. We also we received lots of support from our IT directorate. They supported the student, they supported the faculty, they ensured that whenever we have a proctoring, if anything goes wrong, they are working there. It helped a little bit that we had a small number of students, and we still have. So in a way, being a startup has its advantages and its disadvantages, but we made sure the students get all the support that they are needed. COVID proved to be a big learning opportunity to us, to the faculty, to the staff, to the students. It was basically for faculty to think outside the box and think of new learning and teaching pedagogies that they can use. The LMS system, I mean, you talk about faculty, okay, the university is new, but the faculty are not new. The faculty have been seeing Moodle or Canvas for a long time, and maybe they have only scratched the surface of it before because they didn't need to. But within a semester or two, the learning curve of the faculty in dealing with the learning management system, the learning curve of the student in learning how they can utilize the learning management system was really, really huge, and it really enabled them to test and experience different things. The university, recognizing that this is really an opportunity, there's a big appetite to learn and move ahead. Even though we were in our second academic year, we developed our Center of Teaching and Learning Excellence. And the center has conducted huge number of workshops. These workshops were among peer faculty themselves or inviting external members that will come and discuss issues with us. And the center also conducted a couple of audits, teaching audits to gauge the responses of the faculty, and the audits showed that there is a huge increase in the level of comfort of the faculty and in utilizing their learning management system and the resources, the technical resources available in the class. We went even further. I mean, we were a little bit too ambitious. It was in our second year, and we decided that, okay, we want to do our teaching and learning conference. We thought this teaching and learning conference will be a platform for us as well as other people to come here and talk about our experiences in COVID-19. And the conference was not just to present papers and research paper and technical paper, no. We made sure that there is a session for students, were managed by a student, where a student talk about their experience in COVID and learning. We brought presidents of university, national, regional, and international, to talk about their experience. We had a competition in teaching and learning. We also made sure that it's not only faculty and the student, the administration, the student support plays a big role in during COVID, in ensuring the mental health of the student and giving the student the support needed within their isolated time. So that was also very important. We also invited people involved in internal and external quality assurance to learn from them in how to improve our own internal quality assurance in order to basically move way further and improve the learning experience that the student will receive. The main target in the whole operations that we did and all the activities that we did, the students were in the center of that activity. We wanted to make sure that we bring them the best experience that they can get. But, I mean, although this looks very rosy, not everything is rosy, right? I mean, we still have challenges that we need to face. Student engagement and participation, while we did not have a major problem of student participation, there were these pockets of the student who did not feel comfortable communicating online. They didn't want to turn their camera on. They were provided with a choice of having an avatar in order to communicate, but even that, not everybody was very interactive. Even being on, and people don't feel comfortable sometimes sitting in the front of camera and talking, so that was one issue. We still have to make sure. Class observation from peers kind of was a little bit awkward to get into a class online and evaluated at the same time. People are not used to it, faculty, I mean. They have not experienced it. The reviewer or the observer need to be trained as much as be able to evaluate. And we did not have, between a bracket, expert of online learning that will evaluate based on the need for online learning. Assessment, rigor, and integrity, although we invested in proctoring, we knew that assessment, rigor, and integrity is something that we need to keep in mind, we need to look at, and we need to be able to ensure the academic integrity of the results. Course material, most of the course material were designed for face-to-face learning. So to move to remote learning with the same course material is a challenge in order to make sure and to ask the faculty within that short period of time to change their material is also a challenge. There are people who are expert in developing course material for online learning that is different than when you develop material for face-to-face learning. Practical component, of course, was always an issue. And I think a student also raised that issue in the film. You had labs, you had physics, you had chemistry, you had biology, you had circuit 1, circuit 2, all these courses, they need real lab and real experiments. We tried to go around it by buying kits that can be used by a student at home and shipping them to them. We went around it by having the faculty conduct the experiment and have the student join. And we had simulators. These days, there are very good simulators that can be used. But still, there is nothing like you doing it with your let's say colleagues and work with them. So that is something that we are still thinking about in more ways that will be better in order to implement. Last but not least, the most challenge is the social life of the students. University life is not a classroom. It's not basically having everybody get the class, finish the course, and graduate. No, it's a whole social life that goes around it and develop the soft skills that are needed within the students. So that was very important for us that we don't neglect that. We had two situations. We had a situation where the COVID was not surging very high, so the restriction was limited. And whenever the restrictions were eased, we made sure that we utilize those opportunities, and we have activities with social distancing and with masks and everything. But whenever the COVID would rage, we would refer to basically online activities for a student to make sure that they still interact. Because with COVID, it's not just a normal situation that you are doing an online learning. You don't have the social interaction, period. Not with your students, with the whole society. So it was very important for us to make sure that the holistic university life experience still is maintained to a certain extent. With that, I end my presentation, and I hope I didn't take more time than I should. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wafa. I mean, it is fascinating to hear your experience, how you had to embed yourself in the new normal. I guess it can't have been easy, but at the same time, possibly you had to start from scratch anyway. Yes. So perhaps that made it probably slightly easier, but it is really interesting. And now from your experience, from the experience of the American University of Bahrain, to the experience of an established university with a long time experience of delivering education online. So over to Ahmed to present the Arizona State University experience.
Fabrizio, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the team for inviting me to join this panel. And kudos to Dr. Wafa and every institution that faced and still faces, issues with the transformation, whether it's, remote or online and so on. It's not easy. So definitely, I hear you. And if there's anything that, we could definitely do together, we'd love to do that. But when we look at Arizona State University, so in a nutshell, ASU offers multiple modalities. Online is one of them. And as I said earlier, it is a modality choice. So students choose to go fully online from day one and so on. But to give you a bit of an idea of the size of the institution and so on. So currently, up until 2019, we had over 140,000 students, and with half of them are doing fully online programs, whether it's an undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate programs. The university is accredited by the Higher Learning Commission of North Central Schools and Colleges, and some of our online programs benefit from specialized accreditation, whether it's AACSB or AUBH accredited. But to look at overall, online to ASU is the university took a chance and started building its online capabilities way before COVID, and we've been tracking our online enrollments since 2013, and we're currently at over 80,000 online learners enrolled at the moment, with 12,000 students who have already completed their programs. And this is, I think, reflecting on Dr. Wafa's point. I think it's also very important to note that online might not be for everyone. It really depends on the life situation of the learner. Is it because it's different even from a cultural perspective? So when we look at the US, a lot of undergraduate programs are being taken by adults who never had the chance to go to university. So it's and it could be a different reason. For example, here in the Middle East, for example. So it really is different, and depends on the learner and the stage in their life. But one of the key drivers of ASU going into the online modality is simply the charter of the university is about inclusion. It's about access to quality education, and looking at or assessing the demand for higher education. From 2015 to 2030, it's going from 160 million learner all the way to 410 million learner. That's a huge number, and that, just to put it into context, it means that the world will need to build around 4 universities that each serve 80,000 learners every week and every year over the course of 15 years. And that's a very expensive and a difficult task. And this is where the university's thought process went into online being a scalable and a potentially effective solution. Now, when we look at the journey of ASU in the online space, the challenges, of course, that still faces, and and the opportunities available, we look at simply we just try to simplify the challenges in terms of the lack of personal interaction, the modality separation, the prevalence of cheating, and the lack of advocacy or recognition of these online programs. These are definitely challenges. When we dive into these challenges and the current opportunities available, so you look at the lack of personal interaction. Definitely, there's a lot. The students tend to feel left out, isolated to a certain extent, especially in an online modality. However, the university takes an approach in terms of technology is definitely used, whether it's discussion boards, peer-to-peer critique, virtual tools like Dr. Wafa mentioned, whether it's simulations, video-guided labs, or even home kits, depending on the program, of course. But still, there's a personal interaction, which is a key component here, and retention is always an issue for every educated in that sense, whether it's a school, a university, and so on. So the university dedicates a success coach to every online learner from the day they enroll until the day they graduate. Think of the success coach as a non-academic mentor that is assigned to every learner. They're familiar with their profile, the program that they're enrolled in. They have multiple check-ins in a semester. Data is used in terms of measuring the level of engagement of the learner to see if it goes down, then might as well check on the learner to see what kind of support do they need, and so on. And it's up to the student to have as many catch-ups, whether it's over phone, video, emails, etc., with their success coach. So this is a personal interaction that they have with them, in addition to the faculty access, as well as the academic advisors that help the students map out their learning journey, and so on. I wanted to share, so how do we take the next step into an immersive experience, something that would complement the existing content, whether it be on campus or whether it be online. So this is a partnership between Arizona State University and Dreamscape. For those who are in Dubai, for example, you could visit Mall of the Emirates. They have different experiences. One of them is actually the Alien Zoo. And Alien Zoo is, so ASU has built with Dreamscape a series of introductory biology courses for undergraduate students. And this is in the early stages, of course. We've done the first pilot of 90 learners. The second pilot started in the spring with 1,000 learners. And hopefully the formal launch is going to be in the fall. But the key here is, how do we help the learner either master a specific subject matter? So if someone is a B student, how do they become an A student? Or if a struggling student is simply failing a course, for example, how do we get them to pass through, and so on? Now, looking at the modality separation, when you look at providers that tend to sometimes offer an online modality option, sometimes they tend to differentiate between certificates and transcripts and so on. And that, unfortunately, in my opinion, that tends to feed into the stereotype that online is of less quality. Again, we go back to the charter of the university where it's about inclusion, and part of that inclusion is simply not differentiating between an online and an on-campus degree. They follow the same faculty, content, duration, the number of credits. Even the transcripts and the diplomas do not mention online. And funny enough, when we look at the engagement, when I say engagement, I mean the participation of students in an online modality, we've noticed that engagement is usually higher because it is mandatory to participate in these discussion boards and forums. You know, in a physical classroom, discussions are always mostly dominant by, you know, the loudest student in the class and so on. So that it was interesting to see, you know, how, you know, the shy ones and the introverts and so on were able to participate, of course. When we look at the prevalence of cheating, we are very creative creatures, and I must say it's not only a challenge in an online modality, it's also in in-person programs. And I think it was easier back in the days due to the lack of tools, you know, specifically on the online modality part. But I think we're tackling it from multiple layers. So the first layer is obviously setting the stage, educating the learner on what is considered, or defining what is considered as cheating, setting the rules, especially when it comes to, you know, international students. Culture can also play a role here. So this is one way to do it. The other way is obviously the design of the program, where in instances, humanities, for example, don't really rely on, don't really rely on heavy midterm and final exams. So this is one way to design the program where the students build up their GPA or grades throughout the program from the very beginning until the end through multiple assignments. Then the third, you get into a lot of technology, you know, proctoring software, anti-plagiarism, biometric tools, and even it goes to an extent where keystroke analysis is you know, software could be used in that sense. So it's there's no shortage in this, but again, I always say it's always going to be a challenge, whether it's an on-campus or on an online modality sort of an approach. I think reflecting also on what Dr. Wafa mentioned is, you know, it is a challenge switching to online or being in an online modality. Faculty need to be trained, they need to be certified, they need the support of instructional designers, quality assurance. And this is something that, for example, that is also done to maintain the standard of the accreditation of the university and so on. So this visual literally shows you over 350 different technology partners. And this is the amount of not only work, but the amount of collaborations that go into creating content in an online setting. Now, the lack of recognition and advocacy, I think COVID did act as a catalyst. It did force all industries to switch, most industries to switch into a virtual or a remote approach. And I think that is pivoting the advocacy part, where we're going away from no, this is not online, online is not accepted, into what is considered quality online, what is acceptable, and so on. So it's interesting to be in this space at this point in time. And I think it is our responsibility as providers and every institution that offers an online program to share as much knowledge as possible, be accessible, and help and support in any way that they can to help us move forward in terms of defining the new norm. Could it be, you know, a hybrid model, a fully online model, an option between online and on campus? You know, you name it. And in our culture, seeing is believing. So I think pilot programs are key to measure the impact or success, and to hopefully scale it in the future. And this is an example where between 2017 and 2020, ASU partnered with Al Ghurair Foundation, and Al Ghurair, you know, funded over 550 Arab students to do a master online, fully online, in a STEM field. And that's this is, you know, it's amazing to see their success. It's amazing to see the enrollments. It's amazing to see, how effective they have been finding it. So it's definitely something to look at. And with that, I conclude and I say thank you, and I hope I stuck with the 10 minutes anyway. So Fabrizio, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. This is a very illustrative, actually, presentation with explaining the challenges that you have faced, and in a very big and highly populated university, and actually very impressive, the learning through the teaching or learning in the alien zoo. This was very impressive to me, actually. And how is the integration between the online and offline? This is really very impressive. And lastly, the many students from the Arab world that have succeeded in your university. Actually, we were moved from Bahrain, recent university, to Arizona State big university, small student to very highly populated student. And it was really the choice of the speaker. Thank you, Fabrizio, about this. And also Dr. Tariq from the Arab Network. It's really very impressive. And now we're moving to Bisay, and we're very keen to see what your presentation will be. It's your floor, Bisay.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, let me share my screen here. Okay. So this is a little bit of a different journey that I'm going to talk about today. I'm not representing an institution, but I'm from Quality Matters. So Quality Matters is a member-based international organization, and we have been doing online and focusing on quality online learning for nearly 20 years. So a lot of the lessons learned from the pandemic are things that QM has been working on for a long time. We offer professional development for faculty, for online learning staff, really to support their quality assurance goals and to support them in continuously improving. So I think one lesson learned from the pandemic was that online continuous improvement is something that you continually strive for. When you design an online class, it's never the situation of I designed it, it's perfect, there's no changes to make, So continuous improvement is one of our focus areas here at QM. We also have a research supported course design rubric, as well as rubrics and criteria for online degree programs. Along with that, there's resources and tools to improve online course design, both to help faculty and online learning staff, such as instructional designers. And we focus on a collaborative, collegial, faculty-driven, faculty-focused process for looking at the quality of online courses. We also offer certification for online courses and programs. So currently we have over 1,500 institutional members, and we're active in over 30 countries around the world. Some key differentiating factors for Quality Matters is we really are researched, supported, and focused. So that means everything from the rubric that provides information about course design and evaluating course design, that comes from the online learning research. It also comes from best practices that reflect the expertise in our community. So I was looking at the chat a little bit as my colleagues here were presenting and looking at some of the questions that were being asked. And a lot of it, had me reflecting on the fact that distance education as a field has been around for decades. Online learning specifically, we've been studying that since the early 90s. So there is a wealth of research, a wealth of information surrounding best practices for how to do online well. In the pandemic, however, what happened was you had a lot of face-to-face courses, and faculty who were traditionally prepared to teach face-to-face move online. And of course, they weren't aware of a lot of that research and those best practices. So that's one thing that we try to do here at QM, is to always reflect the latest in online learning research. We also offer an integrated framework because course design is just one aspect of online quality, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But we augment the rubric for course design with the opportunity for course design reviews, and then also that professional development for faculty and staff. A big part of what makes QM, I think, so helpful to faculty and institutions and students around the world is the fact that we have a large community. So our community is very keen on sharing their knowledge and experience. They provide that expertise. They provide mentoring. We have a lot of free resources and webinars, and also member-focused resources and webinars as well, where the community can really share that expertise. Just a little bit about the rubric itself. The QM Higher Education rubric is focused on course design exclusively, right? So not all the other aspects of online quality, and again, I'm going to flesh those out in a moment, but it's focused on evaluating the quality of the course design itself. So it's not an evaluation of the instructor, of the faculty member. There are 42 specific review standards that are organized under 8 larger general standards. And it's a holistic rubric for quality online design. It covers everything from how you're going to interact with your students, whether or not they are supported, whether or not they're prepared to be successful online, and you've helped them do that through the design of your course, through basic instructional design principles like alignment. So making sure, for example, that your content really prepares students to do well in your assessments. And those assessments are what provide evidence to you that students have achieved your outcomes for learning. So we focus on that concept of alignment, but also technology and things that are very specific to online learning, like how are students going to interact online? How will they interact with their professors, and much, much more. QM also offers a way to certify course quality in a third-party way, in a way that is not just within the institution. So we offer an objective peer review process where faculty could provide feedback on the quality of that course design, discuss whether or not it met standards from the rubric, and really provide concise, helpful feedback that the faculty member can choose to employ and revise their course or not. It's a scalable solution. So I heard some of my colleagues mention this as well. This is something that institutions around the world grapple with when they're trying to really pursue online quality. How do I scale it up? Because, you know, as we're hearing in the chat and as we've heard from the students as well, many of our institutions are really not as prepared to do online well as they are to do face-to-face or in-person learning well. So sometimes we need to start small and really support the faculty and students that are going to be teaching online and learning online, making sure we have the appropriate technology and tools, and then scaling that up through our institutions. We're also really focused on student success. So everything that we do, just as everything that you do, is focused on helping your students learn well online and to really get the information, the knowledge, and the skills that they need to, you know, then go out and pursue employment, you know, in their degree area. We also work to support institutional goals. So as we've heard today, a lot of institutions now have newly formed strategic goals for online learning since the pandemic. I'm going to talk about this more in a minute, but preparation was such a big key to success when institutions pivoted from face-to-face to remote learning. And a lot of institutions now are saying we are not going to be caught unprepared in the future, whether for ourselves or for our students. And we really have these goals now to focus on online quality moving forward. As I mentioned, though, course design is just one aspect of online quality. Course delivery, or the teaching of the course, is obviously another huge impactful factor for quality online learning. And it's something that students really experience and even feel as well, that connection with their instructor. So being able to teach effectively online really augments knowing how to design a high quality online course. The teaching strategies and methods that we use online are often very different from our face-to-face teaching. So for many instructors that moved from that in-person teaching to online during the pandemic, they were really caught off guard a little bit because the strategies and methods that can serve us and our students well in our classrooms don't always translate to online. So we have to rethink things. It really is not a matter of just putting a face-to-face class online and migrating that and using the same strategies and teaching methods that we had used face-to-face. It really is rethinking it for the online classroom. Course content is a part of that as well. So we heard some of the students in the earlier video talk about watching recorded lectures from their instructor. And of course, that's one type of online content. But again, online offers us this great opportunity to do really engaging content and multimedia content. And watching a recorded lengthy lecture that was originally meant or even originally delivered face-to-face is not the same for an online student when they watch it online. You're taking away that interaction with their professor. They can't ask questions. And you also have technology issues, just even from watching lengthy videos. So content also needs to be thought of differently in the online classroom. Institutional infrastructure is a huge part of online quality. And I think this is something that is very salient and apparent to us now that, we're moving into this new normal after the pandemic. Institutional infrastructure pertains to things like technology, also different ways that we support faculty and students. Are we set up for online learning success? Even things such as, can our online students avail themselves of library resources? So borrow the books, access texts that they need online. That's part of institutional infrastructure. LMS, or the learning management systems, the way that we study online, whether it's synchronously or asynchronously, are our technology and tools set up to support that? And then lastly, faculty and student readiness. So obviously this was something that was paramount and very important during the pandemic. A lot of faculty and students alike were simply not ready, not prepared, not supported to teach and learn online in a quality way. So making sure our faculty are supported via good faculty professional development and workshops, and also the same thing for students, making sure our students are supported. Being a successful student online is very different than being a successful student face-to-face in the on-ground in-person classroom. There is time management, there is distance that a student feels from both their peers and their instructor. There are technology issues. So even having something like an online student orientation to best prepare our students is a facet of online quality. Some of the lessons learned, I think, around the globe from the pandemic, as I mentioned before, preparation and support are key for both faculty and students. So I'm emphasizing that because a lot of the feelings and experiences that we had with remote learning during the pandemic, we really need to keep in mind that remote learning is not the same as quality online learning. The preparation and support that really is embedded within quality and online learning comes from that purposeful online design, comes from considering the unique facets of the online classroom. So preparing the faculty and students alike to teach and learn in the online classroom, that is key. And you really cannot do that overnight, as we were really forced to do when we moved to remote learning. So I would caution us all to say that if you or your students did not have a good experience during the pandemic with remote learning, know that in that situation, everybody was doing the best that they could to translate their face-to-face courses, to bring their face-to-face courses online. But that's really not the same as the quality online learning that we're trying to pursue moving forward. So it really is driven by those goals of online student success, as well as our institutional goals for our students. When we do online quality well, and it is a purposeful pursuit, that also allows us to concentrate on many of these facets that, again, we heard in that student video, where they felt like, I don't have that social interaction, I'm not connecting as well, it's not as exciting. One student, I think, mentioned that online was more boring than face-to-face. And I would say that is not true unless it's designed that way. So when we're talking about purposeful quality online design, that means that we purposefully design into the course opportunities for online presence. And that goes back to our research on the community of inquiry framework. I'm sure many of you have heard of that community of inquiry that looks at social presence. So how students really feel part of that online learning community. Teaching presence, which begins with design and carries through with our teaching of the course and how we interact with and guide students, and also cognitive presence that focuses on cognitively engaging our students. So that builds into the course active learning opportunities, interaction, cognitive engagement. It allows us to focus on things like application and to really make online an active learning type of atmosphere and classroom. So it's not our students simply watching a recorded lecture video and then taking a proctored exam. We really can do great high quality things online that are engaging for students. And so that is a big takeaway from the pandemic for those institutions that really want to move forward and translate that remote learning into quality online learning moving forward. It also allows us to capitalize on the advantages of online. So again, being able to use all the great multimedia that's out there now or create our own. There's lots of simulations, there's lots of demonstrations. Also the reflection that can come from online. So for students that need some more time to think about things, maybe have a better experience participating in asynchronous online discussions because they can reflect. Because we can ask students to better connect all the things that they're learning in their courses when they have some time to think about it. And also connection. Online allows us new and different ways to connect than our in-person classes. So there are advantages to online as well, and that's something to capitalize on moving forward. And then in closing, I wanted to highlight one thing that Quality Matters really prepared for the global community during the pandemic. So we knew that a lot of faculty were trying to redesign their courses, their face-to-face courses very quickly in order to move them online. So we created this free public guide called the QM Bridge to Quality Course Design Guide. And it really was created with the intention to help faculty transition from that remote learning type of course to a purposefully designed online quality course. It is a step-by-step design guide. I do have the web address right there. I'll put it in the chat in a little bit. It's in the lower left-hand corner there for you right now. Also, it starts with this foundational design idea and it aligns with the QM rubric. So it starts with those good instructional design principles, but it also has special considerations for synchronous learning, for hybrid learning. So we heard a lot about that already, dual mode learning, hybrid learning. Students were asking for hybrid modalities as well in our earlier video. So there's special considerations and call outs for that. And then we also have information from the piece that we created before this, which is also publicly available, called the Emergency Remote Instruction Checklist. So when faculty were in that position and they were trying to move those in-person courses to a remote learning experience very quickly, the focus there really was on connecting with their students. And that's what that ERI checklist gives. So we kind of married those two guides there and immersed the emergency remote instructions and tips and techniques into the QM Bridge. We also made sure that the QM Bridge to Quality Design Guide focused on culturally inclusive and reflective design. So those considerations are built in to make sure that all students feel supported and welcomed. So that is what I wanted to leave you with. And in closing, please reach out to us if you do have any questions about really how your institution can move forward in really good and strategic ways for quality online learning.
Thank you very much, Bethany. And it is quite impressive to see the wealth of experience and advice that Quality Matters provides to online provider. And clearly quality assurance bodies have a lot to learn from some of the work that you do. Without further ado, because I'm conscious of time, I'd like to invite Jenny to share the Oman Academic Accreditation Agency experience and insight into online learning. I'm aware that there are some requirements in Oman around the recognition of online qualifications, for example. Jenny, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, and many thanks for this opportunity to share our reflections on online learning from the perspective of a quality assurance agency. I wonder if I might just start, if I may, with just introducing ourselves a little bit. We are the Oman Authority for Academic Accreditation and Quality Assurance of Education, INQAAHE. We were established as an independent government entity by royal decree over 10 years ago to provide confidence to the public that the quality of higher education in Oman meets international standards, and to encourage continuous support for the improvement of quality management in higher education. Recently, last January, our mandate was expanded to cover over 2,000 schools as well. Just in case you're wondering where we are, we're based in Muscat, which is the capital of Oman on the far east of the Arabian Peninsula. We are neighbors with the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen. A little bit about the higher education profile in the country. We we provide support for the accreditation activities of 40 private and public HEIs, higher education institutions in Oman. Thus far, over 25 HEIs have undergone accreditation activities so far, and are now either they've either been accredited, 11 have been accredited thus far, or they're undergoing reassessment activities. Our institutional standards assessment process is the second part of a two-part activity of quality assurance, which begins with a self-reflection by the HEI, and then is formative in the first stage, and in the second stage is measured against internationally benchmarked standards. I think it's fair to say that, in common with my colleagues who have all been expressing the challenges associated with the rapid onset of online learning, or introduction of online learning that was accelerated by COVID, HEIs in Oman have had similar experiences. And in particular, practical elements of programs have been impacted. So where, for example, for medical courses and for engineering, hands-on practical and embedded learning within industry is an important part of the profile here, and that obviously was made difficult during COVID. It hasn't helped that resources were also difficult within the country and in the region in particular due to the economic downturn. But the good news is that faculty in our institutions reacted quickly and innovatively, and HE campuses have now reopened after COVID. And there's a general appetite to embrace the new normal around distance learning and hybrid modes of teaching and assessment. I think we've all been trying to keep calm and carry on despite the challenges in terms of carrying out our external quality assurance activities. It's not easy for an agency, just as it's not easy for the institutions themselves. But I'm glad to report that our activities have continued, and we last year, for example, we undertook 25 different quality assurance activities, helped in part by the ability to use technology ourselves. If I were to sum up our key responses towards the sector in terms of being supportive to them as they develop their online learning, Our first response was to postpone all EQA activities for a year. Now that might sound a little bit counterintuitive at the very time when the sector needs support for quality assurance, for a new form of delivery. We stepped aside to allow them really to focus on adapting to the new normal and to their distance learning design. Then we used that time to interact with various national and international bodies. For example, our state council, and through various online activities with international agencies, where we shared our approach to quality assurance and how this can be made effective for all modes of learning, including distance learning. Our third approach was we realized that it was very important that we continue to bring international expertise into our external review activities, and we managed to do that in various hybrid visits or hybrid activities of our own, which involved partial or completely virtual presence by international and sometimes even locally based external reviewers. Just as my colleagues have been reporting, it's not an easy or completely secure approach, because obviously it is much more effective if the review panel is able to see things with their own eyes. Having said that, we also realize that there are ways in which part of the panel can be there providing the eyes and ears of the rest of the assessment team. And of course, the visit is only one small element of a whole, of the whole process of institutional review. And so not everybody necessarily needs to be on site to deliver a quality review. In terms of how we've coped with the rapid shift to online learning, we've been able to lean heavily on our values, one of which is the commitment to international good practice. And we're very grateful to bodies like INQAAHE and to our regional networks here and our national network of quality assurance. All of these bodies have provided excellent backup for us, which we've learned from and tried to build into our model as we've adapted to the post-COVID world. One of the key elements of our values that is supporting us well is that we've always respected diversity, and we understand that there are many different ways to achieve the same outcome, and we don't necessarily feel that it works to expect all institutions to tackle a subject in the same way. So that respect for diversity of professional opinion already encourages innovation and creativity, and the embrace of online learning is an extension of that value. Of course, we turn the spotlight on our own activities as well through our own internal quality management activities, and we continually review our practices. In fact, that brings me to one of the main responses. I mentioned three, but a fourth key response was that we undertook to review our standards for institutional standards assessment. And in particular, we have made amendments to the indicators as a result of that project. If you'll allow me, I'd like just to explore that a little bit further. we have, as part of our institutional standards, we have 9 different standards and 79 criteria, but they're all generic in nature. None of them prescribe a response to a particular set of data. This approach has been benchmarked against 30 international models, and our emphasis is all about systems. It focuses on the self-evaluation by an institution to ensure that its practices are effective and sustainable. And so when an HEI reports against the 9 standards, the onus is on them to provide evidence that they know that their practices are maintaining the standard that is expected through the criteria. And this is an important point, because when we undertook the indicator review project, we recognized that actually it doesn't matter how a program is delivered, it doesn't matter how an institution manages its various systems. The important part is that it proves from its own self-review that it has systems that are both effective and sustainable. And so their methodologies are secondary to the system that is that they are using to ensure that the delivery is of a suitable quality. When it came to our review, then we recognize that the standards and the criteria are as relevant to online methods, assessment, and support, student support. But we did recognize that it was important to review the guidelines, and we have non-mandatory indicators that support each of the criteria. And we made some significant changes to the indicators, which we have recently shared with the sector. So, for example, we have looked carefully at the language that we use in those indicators, and we've brought out the areas in which HEIs undertaking institutional quality assurance activities can place more emphasis, so that they can be sure that distance learning or online learning has been put through the same rigorous quality assurance internally as any of their other forms of delivery and assessment. When we undertook this exercise, we noticed that this was particularly the amendment of our indicators was particularly useful in specific areas such as risk management, graduate attributes, and student learning outcomes. Obviously, in the quality of teaching, in terms of academic integrity, as academic advising, and of course, all elements of student planning and management, and including the provision of appropriate facilities. And obviously, making sure that the entire holistic higher education experience hasn't been compromised by choices made about the method of delivery or student support. We are proud of the fact that we take a collaborative approach to all our activities, and now that our institutional standards assessment, the first cycle of that process is coming to a conclusion, we are inviting in all institutions to contribute to an assessment of the standards and criteria ahead of reaccreditation, which will commence at the end of 2023. So in summary, if I'd like to suggest that the new normal is not just reflected in or is not just covered by our standards, it's also reflected in our ordinary operations. So I've just mentioned the fact that HEIs are invited to reflect on their online experience in a major review of our standards. It's also our knowledge continues to be enriched by INQAAHE and national quality assurance networks. International external reviewers who we continue to engage in through consultancy and through working on our panels, they add a further global experience to our practice. We share that global experience through frequent training events, and we obviously circulate good practices through the external quality assurance reports that are published on our website, but also we have in planning a good practice database, which we hope will continue our ability to circulate good practice. Our support for diversity is also endorsed through we have a new system that we've just launched in terms of endorsing the international external quality assurance activities of HEIs. And we are building a register of recognized international external quality assurance agencies. All of these activities are there to help us in or to help support HEIs as they try to find equivalents for their online activities through and to raise the trust in new forms of delivery with a wide range of stakeholders. Lastly, we are about to launch a program standards assessment system and our Oman qualification framework. Naturally, by their nature, both of these will embrace diversity and hybridity of delivery and assessment, but also the interaction of our wider community will help ensure that we are, as an agency, we continue to head in the right direction to be as supportive of all types of quality assurance in learning provision in HEIs. Finally, if you'd like to know any more about our practices, please look us up on our website. It's the very end of the day here, and so thank you for your attention, and we look forward to participating in a wider discussion on this topic through various future forums. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for this very illustrative presentation. She took us in a journey for the OAAA and the challenge encountered in the country during COVID era, and also for the new normal that I think every quality assurance agency should look at it. Now I invite Dr. Fabrizio to start the question. Actually, we have about 9 to 10 questions, and I know that Dr. Fabrizio have many other questions, so please.
Yeah, I want to prioritize a question from the participants. I just probably, I had a question I wanted to ask, but I'm gonna transform into a comment, which is very briefly that I think that what struck me also from your presentation is that what the international education community has possibly been able to appreciate over the past 2 years is the relevance of an outcome-based approach to quality assurance and recognition, whereby there's going to be more flexibility in the way outcomes are reached by students, and this may possibly affect the increased recognition of qualifications offered online going forward. It may possibly also lead to a more shared understanding about the quality assurance requirement for online learning. As I said, I want to go to the questions and comments asked by participants. Some of these do make reference to lessons that need to be learned by quality assurance agencies, and it has been interesting to hear from both Bethany and Jenny. Again, like with Ahmed and Wafa, we have from a quality assurance body was for a number of years accumulated their experience in quality assuring online provision, and agencies like INQAAHE, which has had somehow to pivot as well over the past 2 years towards an online teaching and learning environment and the lessons learned. Now, moving to some of the questions that have been asked. I'll start with questions asked by Ronald. Now, because I'm conscious of time, 2 observations here. There's no need for everyone to answer the questions, so probably I'll direct the questions to someone. And also, we may go over the an hour and a half time allocated for the webinar. So if people can stay with us, that's great. We will carry on for a while. So the first question from Ronald Alvarez, possibly I'm going to ask that to Hamed and Wafa very quickly. How do you resolve the challenge of assessment integrity since the dual modality point of view? Because it is different assessment modality and probably different rules applying to assessment, whether it is face-to-face or it is online. You already somehow touched upon this in your presentations, but if you want to expand a bit more on that. Ahmed, to you first, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you. This is an excellent question. And I think, touching on the presentation, and essentially when you look at, designing a program, specifically, let's say humanities, you don't require as much of intense testing, proctoring. So this is one way to reduce the amount of having to do this. But again, when you look at engineering programs, there are tests that need to be taken. And this is where you tend to use, technology in that sense. But it's, you can't eliminate all of them. And it's just creating the experience in the sense of the student would start to build through various assignments and mini tests and so on. It doesn't have to be a proctored test. It could be an open book test, etc. So there are many different ways. And the key is, it is self-paced to a certain extent. So programs are pre-recorded in a studio, so students can attend at any time and from anywhere. However, there are due dates, tests to be taken by certain time. We want them to be in their comfort zone and focus when they take such tests. But it doesn't have to be, proctored all the time.
Thank you, Hamid. And Wafa, in September 2019, you were ready to deliver and assess everyone online. Comes February, how did you translate assessment to an online environment? What are the main challenges, main lessons learned?
As you said, in September 2019, we were face-to-face. The whole thing was designed for face-to-face. Second semester, we went online. So in April, we did acquire a proctoring system, a proper proctoring system for the examination that were proctored. But as Ahmed said, we did not have all our assessment proctored because we did not have them all as summative examination that is taken online. We had lots of projects, we had lots of case studies. Even when it comes to engineering, there's lots of design that requires open book. Now you will tell me there is cheating in this. Okay, that happens even in face-to-face. You don't sit the student in a class and tell them, okay, design now. They go home and they design. So you have lots of different things like you can have let's say oral examination, you can have discussion, you can even discuss with them how they designed rather than what is the output. So That what was created, lots of debate and discussions on new ways of assessment. Actually, the paper that won the award for the conference was about a new way of assessing that kind of control the assessment even online, to ensure that the student do not need this like minute by minute proctoring in order to make sure that they are not cheating. So at the same time, whenever we had a chance, we would go to face-to-face, to tell you the truth, because that's what the whole system was designed for.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I think this question also answers the second question from Dr. Jamel Hassan. Moving to Jenny and Bethany, again, if you can keep your answer very short. A question from our colleagues from Romania, Simona Lascia. If you can refer to the main challenge or the main aspect that a quality assurance body should, if it is possible, to distill one or two main issues that you need to be really careful when quality assuring online provision from your different experiences.
Shall I lead in that? I would say that the most important thing is to make sure that that HEIs have done their homework. They have to be, that they can't assume that just because something worked in a traditional mode of delivery, it's automatically going to translate into an online mode. And we've heard a lot today about the need to develop materials and responses that are specific to the platform that they're designed for. From a quality assurance point of view, it's important to look at the evidence that HEIs provide, especially in terms of feedback from from students and from staff, to see that they are engaging students in the way that they believe that they are. So the evidence is on collecting data, collecting evidence, reviewing systems, making sure that the new method of delivery is working as efficiently as formerly. And obviously that particularly applies to assessment and all the security that's surrounding that.
Thanks, Jenny. Bethany, would you like to come in here?
Yeah, I would concur with that very much as well. I think the main challenge is understanding that online learning is strategically and fundamentally different than traditional face-to-face learning, and you can't just migrate it. So designing your courses for an online delivery, really supporting faculty in effective teaching, especially if they're doing that dual mode teaching, and perhaps most important, supporting your students. So academic support services, for example, tutoring, writing help, anything such as that. Do your online students have access? Do they have access to the library? Can they connect well and interact with their professor and really get that guidance that they need? So it really is a matter of rethinking things for the online classroom, and this is an institutional effort.
Thank you, Bethany. And I think what you said also answers some of the questions and comments that Hasman from Malaysia was posting around both quality assurance agencies having to review their approaches to the quality assurance, or at least increase their expertise of what they have to look for when reviewing online learning, and so on and so forth. I don't know, Nadia, whether there's any particular questions among the questions received that you would like to prioritize next. Otherwise, I'll scroll through.
No, I don't think that most of them had been answered, actually.
Yeah.
Most of them.
There's an interesting observation from Azman.
This observation, actually, this is one question from Dr. Mohammed Musa about how to convince the labor market of the output of virtual education.
That's a really good question. Absolutely.
This is a very good question that I think maybe one of our colleague, or maybe Bethany, can answer this question, since you have a good hand on the labor market.
Yeah, I have some suggestions here. One suggestion is for institutions, if they're moving forward with online in a purposeful way, especially with online degree programs, connect with employers now so that you know that you are providing students and educating students with the things that are going to be valued by employers. I would also suggest looking at the efficacy of your online learning, especially your courses and your programs. So being able to demonstrate to employers, to the labor market, that students that graduate with this online degree, as an example, they really are demonstrating these skills. They are achieving the same thing. There's educational equity between our online courses and programs and our face-to-face courses and programs. We have now, some 20 years of research saying that when online is done well, it produces the same learning outcomes for students, sometimes even better than face-to-face courses. Hybrid especially works very well. So it's not as though online is not working well and that we don't have the research to really demonstrate that, but we have to make the connections. And I do think then that is going to translate into employers in the labor market really looking at online for the valid opportunity for education that it is.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's interesting because what comes across from this conversation is that there are two main crucial aspects of education delivery and quality assurance, which need to be thought particularly hard when it comes to online learning. One is the student experience, how to ensure that student engagement, the student support to allow them to achieve the learning outcomes. And then with regard to the learning outcomes, how to safeguard the integrity of those learning outcomes in an online environment. Asman pointed out that our recent research in Australia has seen a raise in requests for an increase in cheating, a request for example, support in writing dissertation and so on and so forth. And it was wondering whether that could be also associated with the growth in online delivery given the pandemic, and how to address that issue. So there is an issue possibly of academic integrity there. I don't know if anyone has a particular view about contract cheating and how to avoid cheating in an online environment.
I would love to add something about cheating in an online environment, because we talked a lot about proctoring today. We talked a lot about cheating. The companion conversation to this is really making sure that we are transparent and have conversations with our students about what is academic integrity. Why are we talking about it? Why do we ask it from our students? We can also design things into our courses to really help to minimize that. So looking at including authentic assessments, and reducing things like multiple choice exams. There is also a lot of research on proctoring and academic integrity, and it may be surprising to know that we have found that students that take an exam that is strongly proctored, they don't do better in future courses or do better in future exams. So it really has us rethinking, do we want online learning and online proctoring, to become this sort of conversation about punitive things for students or monitoring students, or do we want to change it into a conversation where we discuss with students why it's important to do their own work and really to give them assessments that allow them to do that in unique ways, rather than, again, focusing exclusively on proctoring. I think proctoring is a great tool to use. I would just love to expand the conversation beyond that a little bit.
That's really helpful, Bethany. Thank you. Nadia, would you like
I
to comment?
think there was some comment from, I think it's Dr. Hasman, about actually we are talking about the challenges that we encounter all, but the challenges for students are really big. And I'm talking this in an area or geographic area where the low bandwidth, regular internet, the cutting the power. I mean, we should actually talk about also the challenges from the point of view of the student, as we talk about the challenges from the point of view of the higher education institution or the quality assurance agency, and especially in an area which there is some poverty, some not developing very well. I think this is part that we can work on it actually.
Absolutely, in particular in the context of a narrative of online learning as a tool to widen access. In order for that to be the case, you need to address those challenges that you were referring to. Absolutely. And I saw a hand from, was it you, Ahmed? Did you want to come in at a certain point? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to also add into Bethany's point in terms of, having a proctored test. So even though it exists, the technology is there, and it could be even argued that it's harder to cheat in an online, test as compared to an in-person. But the thing is, we live in an age where you have access to data. So it's not about memorizing the data, it's about processing the data. That's key here. And keeping in mind, even when it comes to the point of potential employers, absolutely universities need to connect in terms of, in the form of employer engagement. But the thing is also, employers do know that when you do an online program, for example, you pick up certain skills, transferable skills. So it goes really beyond what you've learned. It's about being able to communicate, coordinate, manage your time, being more task oriented. Do you know what I mean? So it's even think about it. Remote working, for many industries that shifted into remote working, it does not mean that you have to sit in front of a Zoom session from 9 to 5. No, it's not. It's not about sitting in meetings all the time. It's about getting tasks done and then having a few touch points within the week. So these are quite a few things that students also need to pitch themselves. They're a brand of their own, and this is when it's our role as institutions to train the students in that sense and to look for the value in things.
Thank you, Ahmed. That's a very good point. And now, I'm conscious of time. There is an interesting question that just come in, which basically asks, with regard to getting ready to deliver online, there are a number of infrastructural developments that need to be taken into account. Is it all about internet connectivity? What are the main infrastructure developments that the institutions having to move to an online environment would need to think about? Wafa, you've been quite fresh in having to address that issue yourself. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, it starts actually before the network and the infrastructure. It's the course material. You have a course material that is suitable to submit to deliver online or not. The experience that we went through as face-to-face institution in the previous 2 years is not really delivering a proper online education. We provided remote education. We took the classroom and moved it online. At least in the first semester, this is what we did, all of us. Then we started to include some online elements, like we revised the way we have placed the course material on the learning management system. We started scratching the surface. I don't think the problem is that the resources are not available. The problem is, especially in this part of the area, online learning was not something that you were actually allowed to entertain in a way if you were licensed as face-to-face institution. The regulatory body will not allow you. So people were too slow in discovering what are the features that are available, even with the current learning management system they have. If I look at where we were in September 2019 and where we are now, only 3 semesters down the line since COVID, the learning curve is huge. But again, I think what we learned from the COVID experience is that the 2 ways of delivering is there to stay. And they suit different people in different ways. They suit different programs in different ways. We just have not to take it all or leave it all. That is very important.
Thank you, Wafa. Now, before concluding, I'd like just to ask this question from Chin Nguyen from Vietnam. There is an interesting question about, at the Vietnam National University, Ho Chi Minh City, we have the regulation to allow lecturers to use maximum 20% of the lectures in online mode after the pandemic, so going forward. How do you think about the 20% ratio? Is it possible to make it higher? I mean, do different quality assurance bodies or different institutions have specific recommendations in terms of ratio, or is it down to the independent decision of the institutions and the preparedness and the readiness?
I think it should be left for the institution. I think as long as the institution show to the regulatory body and the quality assurance and accrediting body that they meet the learning outcomes and they deliver what they are promising the student to deliver, and the academic integrity is maintained. It's, as Jenny said, it's the responsibility of the institution to show the regulatory body and the accrediting body that they are doing it. But how it is done, the space should be available for the institution to be creative and to grow and look at the different resources that they have.
Let me reflect on this from the video of the student. The video of the student, at the end, as I said, leave us the freedom to choose that or that. And when you hear the student, most of them, they say actually about the lectures, they do not need to attend the face-to-face lectures. So I believe in my point of view, it should be increased than this, but leave the choice for the student to choose which one. But on my point of view, it's 20% is very low for online lectures. I don't say the rest of the teaching or whatsoever. Lecture, when you hear to student, most of them, they sleep during the lecture. So I think this is could be, I mean, balanced, as I say.
Yeah. Thank you, Nadia. Jenny, you wanted to come here?
Yes, I will, please. I would endorse what Dr. Wafa and Dr. Nadia have just been saying, and particularly I feel that, or we feel as an agency, that it's really important that that freedom is given to the professionals within the institution, because ultimately there isn't one model fits all circumstances, and it's really important to take in the local context to ensure that the best possible provision is provided. And when it comes to listening to what students have to say, I think maybe that's an area where we need to look again at, from a quality assurance point of view, we need to look again at what the data is telling us. For example, in a feedback survey, it might look very impressive that 95% of students are supportive of a particular hybrid or online mode. But if the 5% represents even one student who is being left behind in that process, then that is a major issue that has to be addressed. So quality assurance agencies, I think, need to be aware that maybe the interpretation of data is different in the new norm, and we have to be very mindful that it's not possible for some students to engage in this kind of learning at the present time in all corners of the world.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a very good reminder of what we need to meet all the needs of all our students, the students we enroll, and we need to manage their expectations at time of enrollment in particular. I think we are ready to draw to a close of our webinar. It is 10 to 3 in the UK. I see people from Malaysia, from Vietnam. It must be very late there. I'd like to conclude by thanking again all the panelists for their input, their excellent contributions. I'd like to thank the delegates for joining us in such a high number with very good questions and at different time zones. I'd like to conclude by I wanted to share a slide just to remind you of a forthcoming event from INQAAHE, which is our biennial forum, which will take place in Mexico City between the 6th and 9th of June. Registration is now open, so whoever would like to come and join us for an in-person conference, do consider whether you'll be able to join us. I believe there is also the possibility for an hybrid conference, so details about online attendance should also be published very soon. And of course, as I said, this was the first webinar of this new series of INQAAHE talks, which we will bring to the international higher education quality assurance community. More details about the next INQAAHE talks will be published soon on the INQAAHE website and on the social networks. Now, with this, I conclude. I would like to invite Nadia to say some final words on behalf of INQAAHE.
Actually, I would like also to thank, you're thankful also to all the panelists and also to the attendee, which is about 200 today. And actually, I would like to thank INQAAHE, the International Network, for this new collaboration. And I really hope that it continues collaboration with other networks all over the world. It's more than 10 networks nowadays all over the world. And this will bring the world together, which is the most important thing for the network, is to bring the world together and see each other in any way. Thank you so much, Fabrizio, and thank you for the organizing committee. Thank you, Beatrice, for this nice organization. And I would like to end by, I will attend all other webinar with other networks.
Thank you, Nadia. And again, yes, I think it's good to conclude with a call for coming together, for cooperation, for dialogue, and we hope that we can pursue that further in the forthcoming events. Again, thank you very much, Wafa. Thank you very much, Jenny, Bethany, Hamed, Nadia, and thank you, Beatrice, for making sure that everything went smoothly. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the next talks or in some other events soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.